Hello, my babies. As I've mentioned, it's your girl MamMaJ, aka MamMaJ. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and you are listening to MamMaJism. Thank you for deciding to listen in on this talk of love and honest conversation. So, let's get into it. First and foremost, I have to apologize to every single one of you. I truly did not mean to go ghost on y'all like this. Yet this is exactly what has happened, and I'm going to use this time to explain myself really quick, and hopefully you will forgive me and understand where I'm coming from. See, so what had happened was I kind of decided to start my own business. Yeah, so I decided to, put my foot on the gas and just go, you know what I mean? So I started my own business. If you aren't following me on my personal account, then you probably are not aware, because I have yet to post anything about it, obviously, on the MamMaJism Instagram. So the business is called The Ism, and the Ism actually stands for the intentional, sincere, and mindful. And it's all about living in the affirmative. I'm not even selling these milk carton bottles. I'm selling the idea and the concept that there are millions of ways to affirm yourself. You don't have to stand in front of a mirror and repeat an affirmation a million times until you start to feel something. There are so many different ways that you can affirm yourself, and one of those ways can be by drinking from a bottle that has affirmations on them, which is where the ism comes through. So I have these milk carton bottles. They are BPA free, you feel me? Acrylic plastic milk carton bottles. So they're cute, they're stylish, they're chic, and they have affirmations on the sides of them. So I have bottles that say, I am love, I am worthy, I am wealthy. And then for my specialty bottles, affirmations like I evolve, I transform, I glow. And with each corresponding affirmation with those bottles, they have special vinyl. So the I evolve and I bloom bottles, for example, I use color changing vinyl on them. So when you put a cold beverage into your bottle, it changes colors. The I glow bottles literally glow in the dark, which is why it's I glow. You see, I'm pretty clever. That's really what's been going on. And so it's already been a slight struggle for me to balance podcasting and going to work full time. But during the pandemic, well, let me say during quarantine, because we're still very much in a pandemic, in case you forgot. But during quarantine, I learned how, I had nothing but time. So it forced me to create a system that worked for me, that made me feel like I was, not burning myself out on creating podcast content, but also just, prioritizing my time properly. When you have nothing but time, it forces you to get a little creative with how you're going to spend it, right? When I was working full time, I just had no choice but to use the bits and pieces of time that was offered to me. So during the quarantine, I was able to basically be my own boss and figure that out for myself. And now that I am back at work, working full time, that is, it then became a question of, okay, how am I supposed to balance working full time, selling these bottles, creating podcast content, and also having a social life? Something was bound to get neglected and forgotten. And unfortunately, it was this, my baby, the MamMaJism podcast, and it hurt me to my core. Honestly, it shouldn't have lasted as long as it did, this little hiatus, if that's what you want to call it. But I kid you not, a couple weeks after me not posting, I'm like, okay, well, it's fine. I still have some time. I'll post next week. Then next week turned into the week after, turned into a month, turned into 2 now. And honestly, it got to a point where I was terrified to hop back on the mic and explain my situation. And it just got to a point where it's like, Majane, if you wait any longer, you're probably just not even going to come back because, like, of course it's going to have that awkward little lull, like, hey, so sorry I dipped on y'all, but I'm back, and who's to say it's not going to happen again? Because I'm human and I don't have a personal assistant. So yeah, I'm doing all this, solo dolo. So we make it work. So I think I'm definitely going to have to restructure how I do this podcast because it is still a priority for me. I am just new at being an entrepreneur, and like, when you're dealing with other people's money and like taxes and things like that, you kind of want to put your main focus on learning a little bit more about that so that you're not getting sued or some crazy shit, So that's truly why my focus hasn't been 100% on the podcast, or at least not as strong as it was before. It's not that I feel any less about podcasting. It's still one of the main things that I want to do and make a career out of. It just had to take the back seat, for the newest addition to the family, because I also want the ism to grow and become something that can sustain itself as well. We're in the beginning stages of a lot of things, and I just don't want to limit myself, honestly. One of the things that quarantine has taught me is that none of us have control over time, right? So we're all just running around with our heads cut off, and I would much rather spend all of my time dipping into all the things that I want to get involved in instead of kind of just sitting there on the sidelines and waiting for my moment. Because how will I know when it's my moment? You just got to get out there and figure it out. And if it doesn't work, back to the drawing boards, or stick with what you know. And if it does work, even better. So that's really the type of time I've been on lately. And I just truly had to explain myself to y'all, because I know I'm like the main one who talks about how important effective communication is, and I was over here ghosting my most loyal people, and I am so sorry. Like, MamMaJ is truly sorry. I will never talk in third person again. I'm sorry, and I will try my best to do a better job. Moving forward, I think it's pretty safe to do bi-weekly episodes, and we're going to keep up with that just because it's just going to add extra stress for me to try and make sure I'm giving you quality content every week. So we're going to keep it at bi-weekly. There have been so many exciting things going on behind the scenes other than me starting like my new business. A lot of different changes within me, mentally, physically, also emotionally, financially, all that stuff. And I cannot wait to get into episodes where I go more in depth, because there are so many things that I wanted to share with y'all, but I just, for one, was going through it, so I couldn't sit down and really talk about it, and for two, I just didn't have the time to like really delve in deep like how I really want to. So be prepared for that. When these new episodes come out, just know that this is probably going to be the most raw, genuine, authentic, and vulnerable that I have ever been. And I think that it's important for me to do this because I feel like a lot of times, people think that they're going through things alone, and that's not always the case. I just happen to be someone who is open to sharing my experiences so that others can relate and see that they aren't alone in it. Representation is important, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you for sticking around and for what I am going to assume your understanding. Just know that it was all for a reason. It was all with purpose. Just like with the business that I started, the ISM, ISM is a part of MamMaJ ISM. So even with this podcast, I'm all about being intentional, sincere, and mindful. So know that anything that I put out, I am being mindful, I am being sincere about it, and I am being intentional. Those are like the three big things that I have truly been centering and focusing on since my transition, going back to work and going outside more and doing more things out in the world. So I hope you will all join me on this journey. And yeah, I'm really excited to see where this will take us. Okay, I'm done. Wait, I lied. Completely forgot to plug my business. If you haven't already, make sure you follow the Instagram page at Shop the Ism. That's ShopTheism. And the link for the store is shoptheism.store. All right, until next time. Bye.